Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and I am joined today by Mr. Andy LaVigne. He is the CEO of ASTA. Let's end the acronyms there. That's the Chief Executive Officer of the American Seed Trade Association. Andy, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be with you and your listeners today.
Yeah, super excited to get this interview and get some knowledge about ASTA out in front of everybody. But before we do, you do get the same opening question that everybody gets, which is, what does it mean for you, Andy, to be intentional?
Mark, when I look at it from that standpoint, I've been very fortunate in my career to have really strong board of directors and just awesome teams to work with, and especially the one I've got here at ASTA right now. And when I think about being intentional, it means how can I be purposeful with them at all times? Maximize the time we have together, clarify, know that they understand their roles, clarify them if they don't, outline those expectations, and just strive to instill accountability, but accountability to the they feel it makes them successful, and not that you're kind of holding the thumb on them. They understand what success means for the whole team. It's how you work with them, not how you manage their tasks and activities. So you give them that guidance and you just let them run, and you really make it that intentional effort.
Yeah, absolutely. So really how do we be purposeful with our stakeholders at all times? I suppose, being in your role, you're in the association every day, but if I'm on your board, perhaps I'm not, right? I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm busy running a seed company myself or something like that, right?
Correct. Really conveying to them what that ASTA team is working on all the time. Trying to say, we've got 3 people on Capitol Hill or in the administration working on these activities and 2 people traveling overseas, and really helping them see that the resources that we are granted by their membership and their sponsorship really help pay off and make that the activities within the industry successful for them, and enables them to do the business that they need to do with America's farmers and homeowners.
Yeah, amazing. Let's start with that. So what are the purposes of ASTA? Let's start with that and give people a purview into, why does ASTA exist?
Well, I'd love to do that, Mark. We actually are one of the oldest associations in the country. We were founded in 1883.
Wow.
And at that time, we were founded to bring high quality germplasm to America's farmers. And we worked very closely with USDA over those years to do that, and the research community. But ASTA represents, we like to say, all seed that's planted for any crop. So alfalfa to zucchini, all production types, conventional, organic, and biotech. And really, our goal is to work with legislators, regulators, the media, and the public on the importance of high quality seed and what that performance means in producing food, fiber, and fuel for our country, as well as flowers, conservation land, restoration lands, all of those. So we really have a broad spectrum of membership, but with that same singular goal in mind, is high performance germplasm and seed.
So it's so wild I think those of us that are in the day to day of the larger scale production ag, we think about corn and soybeans and wheat and maybe sorghum and a few, and then like maybe some pulse crops, right? But but now all of a sudden, as you started speaking about this, I'm thinking about, I just spent $100 on a 40-pound bag of grass seed to oversee my lawn, and so that's included, right? And then there's CRP land, and you can buy things for that, and then there's alfalfa and cover crops, and it's a whole great big, it's a massive swath.
It is. It's daunting sometimes when I think about it. I'm driving through the Midwest, or I'm driving through Salinas Valley in California, or down in Belglade in South Florida. You drive through that and you see almost everything you're looking at that's planted is from our member companies. And they produce that every single year that farmer relies on to be able to produce the crop on their operation that they want to produce and they want to be successful with. You look at that diversity when you walk in the produce, just at the grocery store in the produce section, most of that's from planted seed. Then you walk in the middle of the aisle, or you walk through the meat section. If those the hogs or the cows or anything else weren't fed a grain, they wouldn't be in the meat section. So everything starts with seed, and we always say that it starts with seed. You don't plant a seed you don't eat. We don't eat. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of a daunting task and responsibility that I like to remind our team and our board that we really are the start in a lot of cases with that farmer of
Hmm.
the food that we have at our table every day.
Yeah, it's so true. I remembering as you talk when I was in college after my freshman year, so it's about 25 years ago now, I was able to go on an agricultural tour to Costa Rica. And we spent a couple weeks touring around Costa Rica and looking at different types of operations. And they actually took us to a facility in the mountains where they have all of the seeds that would be necessary to regrow every plant imaginable in Costa Rica should there be some sort of apocalyptic event. And it's like, it's buried in the ground in some sort of sub-zero temperature controlled, facility. Do we have anything like that in America that you're aware of?
Yeah, we do. We do. It's called a National Plant Germplasm System, and it's in Fort
Okay.
Collins, Colorado. We have collection centers all around the U.S. that focus on, there's 3 or 4 in the Midwest that focus on corn and soybeans and wheat and
Hmm.
alfalfa and other row crops. You've got some in Florida and California that focus on veg crops. I think we've got about 40 centers around the country that collect and cultivate those seeds, and then they send a certain percent of those seeds on to Fort Collins, which is
Yeah.
the big germplasm bank, and they also do that. So they know whatever variety is that they have in the collection, every X number of years, depending on the crop, they need to reproduce that seed or that crop, harvest the seed, and replenish it with more current seed. Because you store it at below 30 degrees,
Hmm.
but you still have degradation because it's a living
Yeah, exactly.
entity. We know that seed will gradually lose its germination and quality. And so they've got to cultivate and continue to keep the seed alive.
Yeah.
And it's there in case somebody wants to use it for breeding later, or if there is a disaster, or we find a disease that really wipes out a certain varieties. And globally, we have one at Svalbard in Norway, right near the North Pole, which a lot of people have sent seeds from all over the world, and it's buried in a glacier.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, it's already been tapped because when a couple of years ago, when one of the germplasm banks in Syria was wiped out, they took all the seed. They took samples from all the seed that Syria had given them in other places, but the varieties they needed, and they gave those back to the Syrian ag research community to help the farmers regenerate their seed populations. So it's
Wow.
already proven itself that it can be worth.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. I mean, it's how long, how often do you, I mean, forgive me if you don't know, but how often do they have to swap out seed? I mean, is it good for 10 years? Is it like a
Really
multi?
depends on the variety. If you look at some of the
Okay.
harder seeds, your corn versus soybean, corn, its germination percent degrades slower than soybean.
Sure.
A
Okay.
seed that may be juicier or fleshier, has more moisture in it, it's going to decline in germination quicker than something that's more like a corn seed.
Yeah.
So they know, after certain 5 years, we need to start multiplying this type of celery seed or something along that line. So you
Sure.
can think of the vast numbers of varieties just in tomatoes
Yeah.
that are in storage in Fort Collins. And then you expand that out, all of the corn varieties from the south all the way to North Dakota or Canada.
Yeah.
We've got it in storage over how many years because we create new varieties every year.
Yeah.
So
Is
it's
it like a
it's
Dewey
mind
Decimal
boggling.
System for organizing this stuff or what?
Hopefully it's as current as that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a pretty expensive system, and they also supply seeds. So a breeder here in the U.S. can request any seeds from the germplasm bank to do crosses and to do some research on to create new varieties.
So fascinating. It
Yeah, it is.
really is. I mean, as you were talking about before, I mean, everything does start with seed, and I think we often take that for granted. But I know that a lot those who are in the seed sales arena obviously take it very seriously. I have a lot of friends that run various seed companies around the broad scope of the industry. We've had many of them on, from Scott Sanders, who's at Peterson Farm Seed, to Colin Steen, who's a friend of mine, who has been on here.
Oh yeah.
With Legacy now with Legacy Agri Partners, and we've had folks from the majority of seed entities that on this show. So it's the thing that really, I guess that I really respect and really I guess that I'm hyper aware of is that seed decision for the farm is not only maybe one of the most important, but certainly one of the most personal decisions that they make all year. Right. And it's very hard to move someone if they're loyal to a brand or loyal to a certain, way of doing things. It's very hard to move people. But it really is, and not coming from a row crop farm. I grew up on a leach farm in Minnesota, so a little bit different situation.
Yeah.
It's almost hard, I think, for most of us that don't grow up in a row crop situation to understand just how personal that decision is year after year after year. So, but I can, as a kid, I remember we had a little 2 acre garden that we did plant every year, and I would go into the seed catalog circa 1992, and we would choose what we were going to put into the garden, and it was exciting. It was, we'd go in like January or February, and we'd go through and we start getting a little bit of that, tired of being in the winter months, and we'd go through the
Mhm.
catalog and decide what, and we would fill out the order form and mail it in somewhere, and then they would ship us back a box of seeds. And it is exciting. But why do you think it's such a personal decision for the farmer?
Yeah, no, I like to say it's one of the most intimate decisions a farmer makes every year. They know the performance. The seed salesperson, the seed company comes out and they show them the data that they've done. They've walked the demonstration plots. They know the new varieties that are out there, and they know what works on their operation. And it's really, in most cases, you can't replant because of the season. And so you got that one time to get it in the ground and then care for that seed over the season. And so the farmer really understands that unless something's monumentally different and you're going to back it up, I want to go with what I trust and what I know. And that person who's going to come and walk the field with me when I see a problem, when I've got potentially a pest pressure, or, might be a nutrient shortage of something on my crop. What can I do different? And most often, every situation I've ever heard of, that salesperson is out either that day or the next day to walk
Hmm.
that field with the farmer, to really look at it and analyze it, bringing their agronomist in. So it really is that relationship that you only have that one chance. And the
Yeah.
seed company realizes that I'm judged every single time, every single season.
Hmm.
And not only am I judged in his field, I'm judged in the coffee shop. And so you really have to be able to say, I'm here to provide that service that you need with the variety selection that you want, but also that variety that performs for you. And I'll do everything to get you the highest quality. And so that relationship and knowing that you can't go out and make another, most cases, you can't go out and make another planting. In a lot of cases, when we do chemistry or we do fertilizer, I can make a micronutrient application. I can make another chemical application.
Hmm.
You got that short window to plant, and it's got to perform. It's got to germinate. And now, if I don't look out in that field and see all of a sudden a couple of weeks after it's planted, green tops coming up, something's wrong. Because I'm used to those green tops coming up, or not consistent. It, it
Yeah.
uh, it is. You're very right. It is a very special decision every year, very intimate.
Yeah. Well, I may not be having a special experience with this right now, but I have some grass seed that I can say right now I won't be buying that variety again. We put it in a month ago and not a single one. And so we're in a pretty significant drought here in the southeast, but
I
I
was
have
going to
been
say,
watering it and nothing has come up. And so it's like, okay, did I do something wrong? I mean, and am I that bad of a grower? So anyway, well, let's talk policy a little bit. I know you guys are in the thick of it. It's a very, very interesting time to be in policy with, I'm sure, tariffs and those kinds of things have been getting in the way given the international nature of the seed industry. So can you talk a little bit about what you guys are experiencing that way right now?
yeah, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is that seed is a very global business. Even if a lot of our seed is finally grown or multiplied here around where it's going to be planted in the U.S., we've got to take it all over the world to test it and do research on pest and disease pressures. So we could take them to developing countries that have a lot of pressure there, and see if that resistance that we've bred into it is working. And we also do counter seasonal so that we can produce 2 or 3 generations a year in order
Hmm.
to bring new varieties into the market more quickly, instead of just one every season in the Midwest. And so a lot of that movement of seed is for that research and development, sometimes multiplication purposes. And when you're moving seed out and then back in, even though you're moving the parents out and the prodigy back into the country, we have to pay a tariff for it coming back into the country. And we're probably
Hmm.
not even going to sell that for planting. We're going to sell that to, we're going to take that into our fields and multiply it one more time before we, but that cost is on there. In a lot of cases, it's 20% and above. And so making the administration aware of that process that we have to do globally is been part of a challenge with our current trade environment. So trade's very important to us. We've got to make sure that we've got people in the administration that understand how the system works in order to bring seed to the farmers every year. It's not just something that we can move the t-shirt factory from one country to another or back to the US. We've got to have that global capability to move all over.
You bet. You bet. So what does that process look like? Are we just talking with legislators? Are you working with the USDA, with Secretary Rollins? I mean, so how does the
Yeah,
lobbying process work, I guess?
it's really across the board and it's informative. We work very closely with our members so that they can talk to their elected officials. So we work with them here in Washington and then get our members to work with them back in their districts or in their states so they understand that unique nature of the seed industry. And then we work with the administration. So the White House, the Executive Office of the President, so U.S. Trade Representative, the National Economic Council, USDA, Commerce, State, across the board. Anybody that was touching agriculture policy or trade policy, we need to make sure they understand that nature. And so spend a lot of time there in the administration because, as you know, Mark, every 4 years or so,
Yeah.
the administration is rolling political people who sit at that top level,
Hmm.
that between the career people who have experience and who we know and the president making decisions. So we've got to be able to talk to those political people to help them understand seed production.
You
So
bet.
as you can imagine, it's not something everybody knows just off the top of their head.
Right. Well, it's a lot of education, I'm sure, that goes into it. So, what are the big things right now that are impacting? I mean, is it the tariff situation? What's got people worried? I mean, I'm sure there's certain things that get the lion's share of your attention. So, what are those things right now?
I think trade policy is one of them. All of our companies, clients or farmers rely on moving their product globally, whether
Hmm.
it's the vegetable side of the world, but especially as we know in the corn and bean side of the world. And
Hmm.
as we've evolved the trade policy over the last 5 to 10 years, those markets that we have worked to develop have been shifting to other places. And
Sure.
so our corn and bean growers are looking at, okay, what do we do now with this 200 million acres of
Hmm.
product that we're growing every year when a lot of it we typically export? And now somebody has moved into that and it's become somewhat of a political hot potato. So that's where
Hmm.
we're working a lot on what's the trade policy here? Where are the opportunities globally? And then what are the alternatives? I mean, what is it being? Is it, SAF, sustainable aviation fuel? What do those demand drivers look like in the future, and how do we help facilitate that? So we work pretty much hand in glove with the corn growers and the Soybean Association and Farm Bureau and all of the other organizations in that value chain to make sure that seed is a key component of that. But then what are the alternatives for markets? Because those markets we're selling into as far as grains, we're also likely in there doing our research and development for our products to bring
Yeah.
back to the U.S., testing
Yeah.
them in that way.
Well,
So
and I
we've got,
always wonder, I mean, that there's only so many places, right? And like a few primary places that we're importing, say, like fertilizer from.
mhm.
But seed's got to, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, seed would have to do with almost every country.
It really does. Really does. I mean, that's where you see a lot of the famine and hunger issues in the developing world. Is we work with them too, formerly
Hmm.
through USAID and now through Department of State. Is how do you help them just with basic seed systems so they
Mm.
can collect the germplasm of their most popular varieties or the crops that the people in the country like to consume. How do you make sure that they have high quality, basic, conventional varieties, not
Hmm.
even hybrids? So in a lot of cases, it's just trying to work with that area. And uh, you know, if people aren't eating, they're not happy, and we see that all over the world. They
Of
take up
course.
guns and rebel and revolt. So it is
Hmm.
an important component.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we see all the headlines and all of the things that are going on now all around the world, and it shifts and it changes every single day. But it all, at the end of the day, comes back to, do people have enough food to eat? amidst all of this, and how are these things, truly impacting American farms and global farms and local villages and things like this? And food security obviously being the number one thing every single year, and that's going to get impacted. I'm curious, Andy, what do we need to be writing and talking to our legislators about if I run into one at a show, or if one happens to listen to this episode, like what do they need to know about what's going on right now? How whether it's policy change, or what are the talking points of ASTA right now? I guess that we would be going to Capitol Hill with.
Well, most important for us is that trade component, being able to move seeds so that we can not have an additional financial burden on them, but also being able to research and develop new varieties. We're doing so much in the industry today about disease resistance and new breeding techniques that can really help us target what makes a plant do what it does, and enhance the high quality stuff and reduce or minimize the resistance or the susceptibility activities of the plant. So that trade component and that ability to move the seed is key. But it's the key thing for our customers. They need to have those markets. So what is that? What is our overall trade philosophy going forward? And if it's just tariffs, we're probably going to be in a tough spot for a number of years. The other thing I would say, Mark, is the Farm Bill. And I know we got some of the Farm Bill sections taken care of in the one big beautiful bill. On top of that, there's some other research components, conservation components, and things like that we need to see the rest of the Farm Bill passed before the end of this Congress,
Mm,
really to help the farm and the rural community out there in the U.S.
you bet. You bet.
So that's two things I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a bunch of sense. So this is a leadership podcast, right? And that's the most we talk about contextual things that are going on that affect our industry. And so if you're wanting to be intentional, right? And we go back to your definition, how do we be purposeful with our stakeholders? Our stakeholders are everybody that eats. And it's our job, right, as an industry, whether it's your job or my job or the job of everybody listening to this, to make sure that, frankly, they don't have to worry about it. The vast majority of people don't know, and probably maybe don't care, as long as there's food. And there's so much intention that goes into everything. I was recently at a conference, a leadership conference for myself, and the speaker there was actually talking about intention. It was very interesting. One of the things that he talked about is that our as leaders, our intention actually focuses our attention.
Hmm,
I really liked
like
how
that.
that kind of weaves together, and our intention focuses our attention. So what are we, if my intention is to be purposeful with my stakeholders, then a lot of my attention is going to go on the things I need to do in order to enact that, right? And make that happen. But the caveat was this: it is our expectations that actually put demands on our intention. And if you want to have a better experience, an increased experience, an enhanced experience, I guess, let's say, if we want to enhance our intentions, then we have to raise our expectations. So I'm going somewhere with this. This is all context for you. So one of the things that I've talked a lot about on this show, and I don't know if you listen to them at all, but and I know you're a busy guy, but what happened? What I think is that what I believe, actually, and I'm pretty sure that I know, is that agriculture today, at least in America, is at I think, an interesting time, a bit of an inflection point where it may be time for a new North Star. So, and you kind of alluded to it earlier. It's like, what do we do with these 200 million acres of corn and soybeans? Do we need all of them? We need to keep the farmer occupied. We need to keep our farmers in business. So we need to find ways to create markets to get them paid and keep the ag economy rolling. But if we don't need all of the soybeans, then, well, what do we do with all these things? And when I was a kid, the rallying cry, the sales pitch, was to join the ag industry and feed the world. Well, I mean, with rare exception, we're doing a pretty good job, right? There's some regional situations, but we have more of a distribution issue. So my next question is to you, like, how do we raise the expectations so that, or maybe not raise, just reset expectations so that we can acquire this new North Star? And that's what I'm looking for. Is like, what is the new North Star, for the industry?
Mark, that's a really good question. And I think there's a number of us in the agriculture food community right now trying to look at that. I would say Maha probably has given us a awakening. You know,
Mm-hmm.
where does food play in how we live our daily lives? And that comes ultimately down to the farmer and what they choose to plant and what the market is. what are the other factors that come into play? We go from, in agriculture, we go from a 5-year farm bill. Every 5 years, let's set the new farm bill. Well, if you followed the farm bill over the last 25, 30 years, all we've done is do a little tweaking here and there. And, I think 2018, we had a pretty good change in it under the leadership of Chairman Pat Roberts to really get to where, you were farming the market, you got crop insurance, and that covered any losses you may have. But I think we've lost our direction with that some. And the markets that we've relied on, we put a lot of eggs in, a few baskets instead of looking at it globally. So I think we've got to figure out what are those new opportunities and not look at it at a 5-year. You've got some people now that are trying to look at 20 years from now, what do we want farm policy to be? Because we're so focused on the farm bill. But agriculture is a 1-year focus, my crop. You plant that crop, you harvest it, what am I thinking about for next year? Now, it's hard for people to step away from that, what you live and breathe on a daily basis on behalf of yourself and your family, to say, okay, what's my farm going to look like when I pass it on to my children? And so we've got to just think in a different way. And I think there's a lot of us see a great opportunity to look at this, but it's a bit of a challenge for us too, is how do we, I guess, encourage that next generation to think differently, find that North Star, or find at least the direction that the North Star likely is, because it's going to change. I mean, in this period of rapid change, it'll change, but we got to get on the path that's different than we were on today. And so really challenging people to think, reach outside of, we're trying to reach down the value stream. So we're trying to reach to PepsiCo in the potato business and what they're looking at, and Driscoll strawberries, and other places that aren't typical seed businesses, but they are the face to the consumer. They're face to the marketplace where the products our members are being sold. And instead of just, okay, we'll look to the grain elevator. Well, are you talking to Exxon or whoever's providing sustainable aviation fuel and investing a lot of money there? What do they look at? What qualities are they looking for in soybean oil that's most attractive? Those kind of things that give us that opportunity down the road that may not just be a farm program or crop insurance or a disaster payment. It would be developing a relationship that is evolving into the future.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, leadership has never been more important than it is right now. There's so much change. It's unreal. The scale. I don't think most of the folks that, I work with a lot of small businesses, and, we've, out of pure necessity in our business, we've adopted every AI tool that we possibly can so that we can get efficiency and scale without adding people. And then adding people where we can, but the right kind of people. And so, and we're just, we're a small business. We just have a handful of people working here. What I don't see a lot of, in small businesses around ag is a huge sense of urgency to find that for themselves. Some certainly, and I mean, yes, there's plenty of AI going into the seed industry as we look for faster ways to test things and, can run thousands upon or millions upon millions of scenarios on varieties in a few moments, as opposed to, have to wait for one scenario to play out in a crop cycle. So, we're making advances, but I do mean, like, I say all that because I feel like we're a little bit slower, maybe a little bit more resistant to lean into some of the technologies that can help us go faster. And so that's just where I think some serious leadership is going to be incredibly valuable. If you're in a leadership role now, then you're leading your people through the greatest advancement probably in human history over the next several years. And it's going to be wild. And I think some of it will be bumpy, but some of it's going to be really miraculous too. And I would want to be in that role if I were you.
Yeah. We're in a very fortunate situation with seed. I believe we're still in the Moore's law of genetics for plants. The technology, the knowledge about genetics is changing so rapidly. Every 5 to 7 years, we're discovering new methods and new ways of targeting those specific characteristics within seed. So resistance or flavor or shelf life, all of those things, colors and flowers, all of those things that really are fascinating for me to see are going to continue. And so our people are constantly thinking along that line. But getting it down all the way down into the field, into the seed companies, large or small, independent, regional, however, it's important for everyone to figure out, how do I scale in tools like AI into my operation, whether it's in my sales force or my HR or my logistics. There are so many opportunities here to really look at how this can help me become more efficient and effective for the farmer and my customer, so I continue to keep them as a client.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is, what Colin Steen talks about a lot is, so the farmer being the North Star, right? Like that is what he or she needs. That's his North Star. He talks a lot about that. He's talked about that on the show when he's been on. And so as you look at, adapting and adjusting to the technologies that are coming through, I mean, I just think about just the logistics and planning, and how much more efficient, because we know that there's waste, but historically maybe we can't see how much waste is happening. Well, I mean, that's no longer going to be the case. Like, I mean, you won't have an excuse. You're going to be able to see it. I've applied it to our little business, our little business. Not that much money in the grand scheme of the whole picture, right? Significant to us, but nobody else. And like we found $100,000 in waste that was going to go into taxes, or whether we were going to be taxed on. And it was like, it's 20,000 back in my pocket. That was a big deal.
That's very
you
big.
know and so now on my little, and now let's scale that out across a great big space like all of the seed industry, and how much efficiencies are, and that's just one problem, one little just logistics, right? Just waste and things like that, and we can start to make up for some of the unknowns, which obviously are going to be things like tariffs and Trump policy and what he decides to tweet.
Well, and you think about it too, more crop that our companies are planting today, seed crop, will be harvested in September, October, will be conditioned over the winter, and will be planted next year by a farmer. And
Yeah.
so our companies had to think a year or two back, what's that farmer going to want in 3 years? And so, okay, when are we going to plant it for, for evaluation? When are we going to plant it for multiplication? When are we going to plant it for delivery? And there's new varieties coming into the marketplace, so I have to put it into my demonstration plot. And if you can put all of this, into AI that helps you with that logistics of just the movement of your product, not only through one season, but through development, testing, evaluation, and then delivery, you're
Yeah.
really tying a lot more together. That used to be, you had somebody in charge of this leg, somebody in charge of this leg, and you know, and so it was, how we go into these meetings sometimes, and you say something to me, and I hear something different. Well, you don't have that as much when you bring in that AI component. So there's a lot of things that will really be beneficial. The one that fascinates me the most is, again, we've been doing predictive breeding for a long time, and we've gotten
Hmm.
very good at that in the seed business. But using AI now on top of that, it's just like an accelerator.
Yeah.
You can really evaluate, if I cross these two parents, I'm going to get these characteristics, good, bad, and indifferent, with probably 90 or 95% certainty. So you can weed out a lot of varieties that we used to plant and hope, we wanted to evaluate them in the field. You can weed a lot of that out and really focus on those high performers. So you're constantly looking at,
Yeah.
Formula One cars.
Yeah, I love it. You bring up an interesting point and this is something that we're directly influencing, that I'm curious to see how it will play out, if it ends up mattering at all. But we built a tool. So Momentum Company is a training and coaching firm for the most part. We're in the human capital development space. That's what we do. And so we built a tool based on AI and based on our 20 plus thousand hours of coaching that we've done. And so you can have basically your own AI performance coach that's based off of all of our frameworks and models deployed into your business tomorrow, if you want to get great coaching for your people without having to pay what I charge for an hour or a day. Okay. So we can help you create some efficiencies, but based on the demand of our customers, what we ended up creating then was a sales coach, because we've done a lot of sales training and coaching over the years. So now we have a process through which we can send, let's say, a new seller can go to the farm gate, take their little plod or just use their phone, record the conversation that they're having with the grower, and then take that transcription, plug it into Jericho, and get immediate feedback. Okay. So we're able to accelerate the growth and the development of the seller. Now that was the goal. Now, what we're finding is that we're actually able to capture better information that otherwise got lost. So, things that the farmer says that maybe never got wrote down on a good old fashioned notebook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about how to get a sale, but I missed market intelligence.
Right. Right.
So now let's just imagine. So we actually just reached an agreement with one of our clients. We're gonna have Jericho deployed across by this time next year, deployed across about 300 independent seed sellers across the broad scope of the Midwest. And so I'm not everybody's going to use it, of course, but let's just say 100 of them do. Now that's 100 people times 5 to 10 conversations that independent rep might be having, possibly more. Now all of a sudden we have maybe 500 hours, 1,000 hours of sales conversation giving us market intelligence. And now we can actually use that to start to learn, oh, interesting. Like what are the demands? What are the concerns? What, right? Now we have really some interesting data, some really, and I actually just got really excited about that as you were talking about
It's
your,
fascinating because you think about it. You're asking Jericho, okay, what's consistent message coming out from each of these farmers? What are they all saying consistently? What are they saying differently? It's just because you're right. That third call you have that day, you've been on the road for 400 miles and you're tired. And you're thinking about the family and everything else, and to have that, I'm curious. Do your customers or your clients do they ask the farmer, "Is it all right if I record this for me to use later?" Or they
you
just
know,
okay,
when
it's
we
part of it.
train them to basically say, hey, my intention is to record this so I can keep the best quality notes. Is that okay with you? And then, if they're not, then they don't. But we
Right,
we
right.
literally have nobody tell us not to. And in fact, my position is that if you're not doing it, certainly your more sophisticated buyers of the next year, 2 years, 3 years, probably should be questioning your whether you're whether you have their best interest in mind, right? Because like things get missed, orders get missed, issues, and we don't have room for error. And so I would, my sales team, myself, everybody here is required to record every single conversation and then run it back through Jericho to get immediate feedback on how you did and where can you improve. And we have that tool. Why wouldn't we do that?
Makes perfect sense. Wow, that's awesome.
Yep. So yeah, I imagine there will be some pushing back that don't want their conversation recorded. But it's like I'm not recording it to Big Brother you. I'm recording it to make sure I get your order right. Is that okay? And anytime
And
you
I want
call,
the
if you
perfect
call your
date.
doctor's office or you call the credit card company or you call anybody, what do they say? This call is being recorded for quality assurance and training purposes.
Yep.
So, yep, yep. I think that'll be the way. And if we can have that level of data, that level of information, it'll be super super interesting. So, man, Andy, this has been really cool, wide ranging. Thank you for the update on ASTA, what's important to you guys, what you're facing right now with tariff issues, disease resistance, farm bill, the trade component of everything that you guys got going on. The history, 1883. I did not realize that it was one of the oldest trade associations out there.
It is. It is. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for doing the show. Good to have you on.
Mark, it's great to be here. Great to be with your listeners, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
You betcha. Take care.